What's up, guys? Welcome to another conversation. Oops, sorry, I hit the camera. This this series that I started is basically demystifying the Bible. A lot of people feel like, oh, the Bible's not for me, religion's not for me, but it's I'm not fluent in the Bible because I've been throughout my lifetime. I've been through different churches, and I've had people tell me, "Oh, well, that's not what it meant," and you misconstrued it. You took it out of context. Okay, so I've come to a point in my life with everything that's going on with the racial tensions, with people doing research on slavery and how slave masters forced Christianity onto blacks. I've decided to examine the Bible for myself using common knowledge techniques based on general science, nothing specific. You don't have to have a degree, just general science. Plants go through a process of photosynthesis. They soak in sunlight. They also need water. Humans, specifically Negroes, we need water. We also soak in sunlight. So, in saying that, it's just a generalization that we are part of the earth. And it's our job to take care of the earth. But when you got so many outside forces telling you what to do, how to do, taking your nationality from you, taking your language from you, it's hard to do your job when you don't know who you are. So I want to examine the Bible. I don't think it's as mystic as people say it is. I don't think it's unapproachable like people say it is. And remember, the Bible has been around for a long time. First with Catholicism, which led to Protestant Reformation because the early Catholics weren't allowing the members of the church to read the Bible. Not to mention it was written in Latin. So let's just get into it. Last time I was talking about light versus dark and timing. We were talking about how it says that the night and the day, and the night, the dark and the light were the first day, which was kind of confusing. But then when you think about it, using just common sense, you understand that 12 o'clock in the morning is still dark. You also understand that sometimes 8 o'clock in the evening is still light. So it's quite possible. Oh, I'm sorry for the interruption. So what I'm thinking is using common knowledge, using common sense, we can find out what the Bible is trying to say to us. I believe that there's a message in the Bible, and that message is going to help us to create a better society for ourselves. Now, I also believe that for the most part, that message is to a specific group of people, and that knowledge is for them to spread to all the other groups of humans on the planet Earth. So, with that being said, we left off uh, Book of Genesis, yeah, which is supposed to be the first book. So, and God said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters. And then off to the side, to the right side, it says expansion. Because, and see, that's another thing. It's got this particular version of the Bible. It's got little notations, and if you don't pay attention to them, you will miss it. You will definitely miss it. So it says expansion right there. Put my finger there. Some of you probably seen it already, but yeah, it says expansion right there. And God said, "Let there be a firmament of the mist of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters." So you got expansion of the waters, dividing the waters among the waters. Okay, some people, how you gonna divide the water among the waters? Well, first of all, this doesn't explain how God did it. It just explains what He did. You have land and you have water. You have more water on earth than you have land on earth. You have ocean, seas, rivers, brooks, streams. You have all kinds of bodies of water on the face of the earth. Lakes, ponds. So yeah, the waters were divided into different categories. Uh, that being said, let's continue. And God made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. And it was so. Okay. So he divided the waters on top from the waters on bottom. But then you say, well, what waters? What waters could he possibly be talking about on top? There are no waters on top. It's just water, land, air. Okay, this is true. This is true. But if you take a small pot of water, put it in, matter of fact, tea kettle. That's what I'm going to use. Tea kettle. If you take 2 or 3 pots of tea kettles, fill them up with water, and boil them. What comes out while the water is boiled is steam. That process right there is literally dividing the waters. You are literally taking the water and you're dividing it. From a scientific point of view, everything that makes water is being divided. You're pulling out the oxygen, the hydrogen, and what do we call that? We call it H2O. H2O, hydrogen and oxygen come together to make water. So when you have enough heat, you can literally divide the waters. Some of that air from the oxygen that we breathe goes into the atmosphere. But then when it comes back together, when it gets dense, then it rains. It turns back into water and it comes down in the form of rain. Remember, you, for me, and I'm sure this goes for a lot of you all, but for me, the Bible can be demystified because these are regular people. They're using the knowledge that they had available to them. If we just focus on the way we see things in modern life, then you'll get lost, plain and simple. But if you try to look at it from a what's the term I want to use? If you look at it from their perspective, you see what I'm saying? When you were little, you knew what a spoon was. You didn't know what it was called. You didn't know it was called a spoon until somebody told you. And even then, you still didn't understand. But as you got older, you understood that that thing that you were using as a hammer beating on stuff with, that was actually a spoon. So it's a matter of understanding. The way they understood things then and the way we understand things now is completely different. But there's a bridge. There's a bridge that we can use to understand what they were saying. And God called the firmament heaven, which is the sky. Makes sense. So one firmament was the water on the planet, and the other firmament was the water above the planet, in the air, in the sky, in the heaven. Okay? And the evening and the morning were the second day. The evening and the morning were the second day. Here you go again. The evening and the morning were the second day. Now some people might get confused. He's still saying the evening and the morning is the second day. But remember, you have to remember, God's time and our time is not the same. He worked for 6 days, and on the seventh day he rested. So what does that tell us? When God punched in to go to work, he worked at night. He worked at night, and he got off the clock the next morning. Just like now, some people go to a job in a factory or at the mill. They work I can't remember the exact hours, but they work at night. They go in the evening and they don't get off until the next morning. So, with that understanding, yeah, the way God worked was he worked that night and he got off work the next morning. So for him, the night and the day, the night and the day was the next morning. The night and the morning was the next day. I have an alarm clock going off in the distance. Hold on a minute. Oh, sorry about that. So, the evening and the morning were the next day. That would definitely seem confusing if you think about it from, if you think about it from our way of thinking, modern way of thinking. But if you break it down, because remember, you got to remember when Jesus was explaining things to people, he used metaphors that they could understand. He broke it down into terms that they were familiar with. So, in saying that, what I'm saying is, like Jesus, I want to use modern day terms that the people can understand in order to break down the Bible. Some people might think that I'm wrong for doing that, but you call yourself a Christian, you want to teach the people about the Bible and what it's saying, then why not do it the way Jesus did? What's wrong with me? What's wrong with me teaching my people about the Bible the way Jesus was teaching? And I'm not Jesus, but that don't mean I can't take some of what he did and apply it to my own life and use that as a tool to teach others. So, with that being said, God went to work at night. He got off the next morning, and the night and the morning was the next day. That was his timetable. For us, the morning and the night is one day. Because remember, we're not God's equals. We're underneath him. I don't want to say beneath him. That's kind of, there's a nasty taste in your mouth. I mean, we are beneath him, but still, we're God's children. We will never rise to his level. But as his offspring, as his children, we can get as close as we can to God's on earth. Let's continue. So, and God made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament, and it was so. And God called the firmament heaven, and the evening and the morning were the second day. And God said, let the waters under the heaven be gathered together unto one place, and let the dry land appear. And it was so. That sounds logical. To me, it sounds logical. He's saying what I said earlier. Water evaporates. Water evaporates from the earth, goes into the sky as a mist. The oxygen and the hydrogen molecules separate. And once the clouds, or however that works, I'm not a scientist, but once certain conditions are present, the oxygen and the hydrogen come together and it gets dense, turns into water, and the water comes back down onto the earth. Now, not only that, but because the waters are separated, you have groups of water waters and lakes that are connected to rivers, brooks. What other kind? I know the major kinds are seas and oceans. I think there's one more I'm missing, but I can't remember what it is. However, the point is that the waters in the heavens, the rainfall, is coming down to earth. And as clouds move across, water falls into the lakes, it falls into the rivers, it falls into the oceans and the seas. So the firmaments, the oceans, the lakes, the rivers, the bodies of water are separated from the land. Although nowadays we do have floods and it overflows, but eventually it dries up and goes back into its respective bodies of water. So he completed the second day. And God said, let the waters under the heaven be gathered together unto one place, and let the dry land appear. And it was so. That's what we just said. And God called the dry land earth. The dirt, the soil, that is called earth. And the gathering together of the waters called he seas. And God saw that it was good. So the sea, before we knew about oceans, seas are more, to me, seas are like small oceans. It's like, I believe the seas are a little bigger than oceans. Uh, I'm speculating because you have like the Black Sea, and then you have places like the Gulf of Mexico. So it's like Gulf seas. You got all these different bodies of water. Then you have lakes. Now, I do know that most the sea and the lakes are tied to beaches. So, well, before I start another section, I'm going to end this here. That's why my alarm clock was going off, because there's my reminder that I have something else to do. But don't worry, we will continue this conversation. I'll chat with you guys later.